everybody. I'm glad you guys came. My name is Dorinda. I'm the owner of the Crystal-Lak Company. David, my husband, as well. And I just wanted to introduce myself and who our company is and how it started, just who we are, so you have a little background on us. My dad actually started the company. He's been a paint and coatings chemist since the 50s. He's actually 91 years old, just this last month. But he started making water-based coatings way back before it was ever even popular or a thing, before water-based was even in the market to sell. He wanted to make something that was environmentally safe, that wouldn't hurt your health, before all the regulations came and hit. And the regulations came and hit. But the good thing was that he was ahead of it and had the technology to formulate long before it was popular. He started out in California and went to paint and coating school. He has also been in the military before that, so he's a vet. Anyway, I came to Tennessee in '99 and started working with him, and he trained me how to formulate and how to make paints and coatings. So my education was sitting by his side every day, learning how to put things together. And I bought the business from him in 2017. And David and I took it from just being a local business with a few distributors in the States to selling worldwide. We're in a bunch of countries now that we sell to, and we do most of our sales are actually online. And we've worked on putting together an academy, Crystal-Lak Academy, which has all kinds of tutorials, and we're building it now, so it's still in the beginning phases, but we're putting together tutorials on these kind of things, how to use the products, and just to make it easy for our users. So that's a basic introduction. You want to come on in, David? He's the talker, so yeah. I'll let him do all the talking.
Well, I've got one job, and that's make her happy and talk about Crystal-Lak Company products. But like Dorinda said, when she and I joined forces, it was about 2015.
yeah.
They had the greatest product. I could use it, and I'd never finished anything. And I lived in Elizabethton, and I'd get some products when I came up to visit, and I'd go home and play with them, and I couldn't make a bad finish. As bad as I tried. One time, for example, I had a quart of our black polyurethane. It's extreme protection black, isn't it? But I had a quart size like this, and I had a brush. It was actually a foam brush like this, 2-inch. And I was going to do the top of my fireplace. It was all oak, and I was going to do the top of my fireplace. And I'm holding the quart like this, and I'm dipping, doing this, and I'm like, man, this is going to take forever. So I'm start to pour some out, and when I did, it went like that, and I grabbed it up, and I had a putty knife, and I was trying to get it all in like this, and trying to rake it back in the cup, and I was like, finally, I just smoothed it out a little bit. Next day, it looked like a sheet of glass across the top of it, black glass. It's still there.
So if he can do it,
that's what I'm saying.
You guys can do it too.
So, and you know, many times, and we'll get into some questions here in just a second, many times, to be successful when you're switching companies, like if you've used Minwax or General Finishes or something like that your whole life, anytime you switch companies or you even switch a product inside that company, it's always best to practice. Don't go to your brand new slab or your grandmother's hutch or something like that and practice on it. Get you a piece of wood, a couple of scraps. Katie Shown down at Shown's Lumber, they've got wood laying around everywhere. You could go down there and pick some up. She won't care a bit. Those scraps, that's where I got these. And just do some practicing so you get a feel for the products, because they're all different. You know, lots of folks believe that polyurethane is polyurethane. Well, there's literally tens of thousands of different polyurethane resins in the world. And whatever blend you use of that, whether you use an acrylic with it, or you know, a different type of solvent, or 2 or 3 different kinds of polyurethanes, a different thickener. There's all kinds of different ways to make a polyurethane, so don't believe that one is the same as the others.
Yes, and there's also oil-based polyurethane, there's solvent-based polyurethane, and there's water-based polyurethane. And then there's blends of polyurethanes and acrylics and just all
Yeah.
kinds of,
And you can have an
change
oil
there.
modified top coat that's water-based but have oil in it. So, there's all kinds of different things. And just like when everybody's car out here, when you went to buy a car, you kind of researched it a little bit. You went and found out which one's going to get the gas mileage you want, which one's going to be easiest for you to drive, a stick or an automatic. Are you going to be pulling trailers? Or are you just going to be pulling you go research which vehicle is going to work best for you. And I encourage people to do that with your finishing products also. Just don't assume because you saw a YouTube video of Dorinda making this beautiful piece of furniture look just amazing that you can buy this and do it yourself. It takes a little bit of research and a little bit of practice each time. And so that's why we're wanting to do these. We hope it sells some of our products, but if it don't, it helps people get educated in what they're doing with finishing. I'll tell one more quick story and then we're going to go to a Q&A. You want to sit down? I don't want to.
sure, I
Okay.
can.
She makes me nervous when I feel like I'm being judged. She does judge me quite a bit. What was I talking about? Huh? Yeah, I done forgot it. We got invited down to Knoxville to it's a chain of wood tool supplies and stuff like that. And yearly they do a big competition down there, and they invite 21 woodworkers from across the country to come to Knoxville for this big competition. And they have folks from, when we were down there, from Portland, from LA, all through the Midwest, New York. That was 21 different ones, and they had everything from bowls like our friend Lynn Campbell does to big, huge pieces of furniture to flutes, bows and arrows, fishing rods, anything woodworking. Somebody at their peak in that was invited to do it. So we go down. So we go down to Knoxville and we walk into a room, and it's about the size of this store, a conference room, and they've got all these displays. There's one chair up here and there's one there, two here, if you want to come up. You might want to move over. So we walk in. You just completely threw me off now. I'm just completely threw off. It's good to see you guys. You guys come to everything. Thank you so much. But I walk in, Dorinda and I walk in these two big glass doors, and in the very back of the room, 70 feet away from me, I see this reproduction of a 1700s tall boy. It's a dresser type, Chester drawers, and it's about 8 feet tall, maybe a little taller, and at least this wide. And when I walked in, I heard angels singing, oh, knowing this was hand built. Well, I go over there, and the gentleman had used all hand tools from the 1700s to build this. There wasn't a screw, a nail, anything like that in this thing. And it was, the drawers slid like butter. The cabinet doors just opened. It's like a Mercedes-Benz or something. And it was just absolutely amazing, the woodwork that he had put into this. Got into a conversation with him, and I asked him, how long did it take you to do this? He said, I pretty much worked on this all but 2 weeks out of 2 years. Anywhere from 2 to 8 hours a day for 2 years he worked on this thing. And I mean, ornate, just, you can't imagine. I wished I'd have taken pictures. Probably did, but I don't know where they're at. And I was like, I complimented him, and I said, okay. It literally looked like he had stood up on a stool beside it, took a gallon container of top coat. It's what it looked like, and just like poured it over the top of it. And I was like, well, it's an amazing piece. How long did it take you to finish it? And he went, took me like all day. He had worked 2 years in building this thing, but to take a full day to finish it was just too much to ask. Now, he didn't place because of the finish. Even the woodworkers come by and went, oh, you know, it was that bad. And he just hated that he had to spend a full day on finishing. What's the first thing you see when you finish something? When you put a top coat on or a paint or what? Well, if you walk in, if somebody walks into your house and you've just finished a piece, what's the first thing they see on that piece? The finish. The finish draws it in, and then they look at the details of the woodwork and how smooth it is and all, but the first thing you see is finish. And to me, that's the most important part, is the finish. Now, if it's a stool, you got to be able to sit on it without it falling down. But you know, the finish makes it or breaks it. It's what everybody sees and what you're going to see. And the quality of the finish is going to determine how long it lasts. So you can go to Lowe's and, you know, buy the box store brand that's around 11% solids, and we'll probably get into that some today, in comparison to like our Extreme Protection polyurethane is around 55% solids. And what that means is about half of what you put on your piece stays on it. You go to box store product, I won't name it since we're live, but they'll sue me, but it's true. A box store product can range from anywhere from 8 to 13% solids. So what you put on that piece from the box store, only around the average of 10% of it stays on that piece. The rest of it evaporates off. Where this maybe cost a little bit more, but one coat of like Extreme Protection will equal like 3 coats or 4 coats of your box store stuff. So you're really not saving any money. That's where it pays to really pay attention to your products and research your products and spend a little bit more for it if you want it to last forever. Now, one thing I like to do is I like to let you guys determine what we demo. So I'd like to go around the room. I know we put the message out to if you had any questions about finishing products, whether it's ours or somebody else, application methods or dry times, cure times, what's the difference, you know, those types of things. That's fine. Now, I may not answer them right now, but I'm going to set my demo up to your questions. Dorinda's going to help me remember what they are. So we're sure to. And does anybody have any questions about finishing? Crystalac, anything like that? Yes, ma'am. Not always true. So we'll cover that too. Wrought iron, John Weiner's doing our gates for our porch right now, and we have actually our grand finale, our tumbler coating product on our outdoor porch. So on the rails, wrought iron rails. Yes, ma'am. Glass, absolutely. We have a lady in Asheville that uses our Brightone for stained glass. She does stained glass. She wanted a non-toxic type product. I saw another hand. Yeah.
I wanted to use it on cedar.
Uh-huh. Okay, awesome, awesome. Does it have a finish on it now? Okay. Anybody else? All right, well, that's a good litany. That's a good cross-reference there. We'll start out talking about the different types of products and what the differences are in them. We manufacture about 160 different products here. You may have used our products under somebody else's label. We make products through toll manufacturing for Stuart McDonald, which is the largest luthier supply company in the world, out of Ohio. Retikit down in Apex, North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina area. We make several of their products for them. Martin Guitars. We make their grain filler, have for over 40 years, made their grain filler. And they use a combination of water-based grain filler and nitro lacquer. So they've got a process that they can mix the two. So we're going to talk about that some. But I like to start out with our Brightone instrument finish. Dorinda designed this product for National Resophonics, a national or international guitar company. They do kind of the steel front and But anyway, she designed this product for them actually, what, about 20 years ago? 25 now, I guess, 25 years ago. And it was primarily designed not to change the tone of the wood. So a lot of your oil-based products and things like that on violins and stuff like that, when they finish those, they put a top coat on them. They don't know how it's going to come out until after they put the top coat on it, how it's going to sound. Well, this doesn't affect the tone of the wood whatsoever. It's a very high solids product, around 80-85% solids. So it's a little more expensive, but around 80-85% of what you put on stays on the finish, or on the project. It is a polyurethane blend. It's proprietary. I'm not going to tell you, or you can't leave. You have to go to work for Crystal-Lak for the rest of your life. You can't leave anymore. So we'll get an NDA or something, but proprietary, sell it all over the world. We ship this into 17 countries. We're on Amazon Canada, Amazon here, of course, and getting ready to be on Amazon Australia. We actually sell more products. There's a little community in Queensland, Australia called Moray, and it's around 10,000 square miles. There's 238 people there, and I sell more products there than I do Mountain City. Go figure. That's Brightone Extreme Protection. Now, this is my personal favorite for what we're doing here today. It's a little less expensive than the Brightone. It's a little less in solids than the Brightone. It is a polyurethane blend similar to Brightone, but it has a totally different type of resin in it. Resins, polyurethane resins. They're all water-based, non-toxic, eco-friendly. If you're out in your shop or in your craft room working and you catch something on fire, grab your Extreme Protection or polyurethane, put it out, come back and buy some more Extreme Protection or polyurethane. It won't burn. You don't have to worry about having it on a cloth and the cloth laying in the corner and catching on fire like some of your oil-based and solvent-based stuff does. But this is around 50-55% solids. I'm not going to talk about all 160 products, just what we're going to cover today. Sanding sealer, we actually have two different types of sealers. This is your favorite. This is how I got to be friends with this guy. I'll never forget it. Ambertone sanding sealer. This is for raw wood. It's not made to go over. I know the sanding part can sometimes be kind of confusing. You think that you can just put this on top of the top coat and it's to help. No, it's not. This is to give the, when using water, my sinuses are just going nuts. When using water-based products, imagine taking this pine board and dipping it in a bucket of water. All the peach fuzz, you've seen the grain rays that comes off of it and stuff like that. Well, the same thing will happen when you're using water-based products. And we don't want you to have to sand your top coat to get that peach fuzz off. So you put a coat of top coat on your pine or something like that, and you're going to get a lot of grain rays, and then you're sanding it off. Put another coat on, then you sand that off to get the grain rays down. Well, the sanding sealer, what it does, and it has a little bit of an amber tint to it. You see what I'm talking about? I don't know which one. It's hard to tell with one coat. Okay, see how white and pale? The amber tint gives it those grains, that real richness, that real nice color that we get a lot of the times when we're using oil-based products. You won't get that with water-based products, or at least not on a greater extent. So we added a little bit of amber tint to this to give it that color. This will bind the pores and grains of the wood, so it eliminates most of that grain rays when using maples and pines and things like that. It really helps with it. How we suggest using this, and we're going to do some of it here in a few minutes. How we suggest using this is put a coat on, let it dry a couple of hours, piece of 400 grit sandpaper, 600 grit sandpaper, lightly just knock that fuzz off, wipe it off, put you another coat on it. Coat or two of this and it's going to be rock solid. It's going to give you a nice base to put your top coat on. You don't have to worry about your top coat sinking into the wood and wasting your top coat. So you've already got it covered. It's not shellac. We had a huge request from luthiers and fine woodworkers. They didn't want the amber tint. They were using maybe exotic woods or something like that, and they wanted it to look like it was going to look. And so, but they still needed, because they were using water-based products, something to bind the pores and grains. So we came up with a shellac substitute that's water-based. All of our products are. a shellac substitute that will bind those pores and grains without adding that color to it. Essentially does the same thing, just doesn't have the amber tint to it. Did I miss anything? Oh yeah, it also blocks the tannin. So if you're going to paint a piece and you know it's a piece of mahogany or something like that, and you know as soon as you put that beautiful white paint on it, it's going to suck that brown right up through it. This will help seal and bind those tannins from merging up through your paint or your top coat. A lot of people will buy a top coat and they say, my top coat turned yellow. No, you didn't seal it. You know, you didn't do what you needed to prevent those tannins from going up into the finishes.
What
Mhm.
I put the inner coat, I put the coats on, and if you use the color brush, it won't let it bleach into the wood.
Right.
You don't have to take it out this deep with the sander to get it out.
Yep.
It stops it from.
Yep, seals it off, and once it's there, it stays there. What have we got here? This is our grain filler. Martin Guitars buys 30 of these a year. Don't take much. 30 quarts a year for Martin Guitars. People come in, I need a 5-gallon bucket. No, you don't. Your great-great-great-great-grandchildren will be using the grain filler. The grain filler is not a hole filler. It's not a knot filler like this. It's not a knot filler or a hole filler. That's a putty that you're looking for to do something like that. This is those fine, minuscule grains. You know, if you're wanting, if I'm wanting this piece here of poplar to be smooth like glass, what I call a Mercedes-Benz finish, it's really hard to get that with your top coat just by putting a top coat on it, because the top coat will fill in those valleys and hills, and you'll still end up with those dips. A lot of times you look, many of you that had hardwood cabinets, you look down the side of your hardwood cabinets and it looks like the surface of the moon going down through there. If you don't want that, apply a couple of coats of this, top coat right over top of it, and it's just smooth as glass. And we'll talk about this some more too. What else have I got over here? All right, so we're into Extreme Protection Bright Tone. Somebody asked about exterior. We make a specific product for exterior wood projects, stained glass projects, glass, metal, steel, whatever you want to put it on. This is our crab coat. Crab coat's a marine grade finish. Excalibur fishing yachts in North Carolina, they're about $17 million a piece. They use this on their bright work. For all the bright work on the inside of the boat and the rails and everything else. Deluxe Polish in Fort Lauderdale does all the high rises, teak and ironwood furniture, patio furniture. They use this. Warehouse 2120, teak and ironwood furniture down in Hickory, North Carolina. They use this for years and years. So 4 coats of this in full inclement weather. Dorinda, when I first met her, she had a board about this size laying out on the loading dock down at the plant. And it had lines on it here, about 4 lines. And this says 1 coat, 2 coats, 3 coats, 4 coats. And it'd been out there about 3 years. The 1 coat of the crab coat was all moldy. The wood was starting to separate. The 2 coats, it looked a little better, no mold on it, no mildew on it, but it was still breaking down. 3 coats looked pretty good. 4 coats looked like it'd been done the day before, and it'd been out there, what, 2 years? So it's important to do what's recommended when using an exterior product. The difference between interior and exterior is with crab coat, we could take these, we've got ways, not necessarily this, but we could put 4 to 10 coats of crab coat on this card. And once it was fully dried, fully cured out, we can do this and it won't break. Now it won't scratch, but it won't break. It won't rip, it won't tear, anything else. It's very flexible. So if you take a product, interior or exterior, that's designed, you know, they say you can put it on furniture or you can take it outside and put it on a sign. It's going to fail a lot quicker because it does, to get the durability for an interior finish, high traffic finish, you're going to have a really hard scuff resistant finish. It won't work outside very long. It'll work for a while. You know, people say, oh, I did my door last year and it looks great. Call me in 2 years because it won't be there anymore. And because it's just not designed. So you're better off to find an exterior grade finish that will bend, flex, and move with the elements. Especially like here today, you know, it's what last night around 65, 70. Then today it's going to be Hades hot outside. That wood's going to move and stretch. Even metal will move and stretch and bend. And you want something that's going to be flexible and durable and still be clear and all those things on that. So that's the big difference on that. What was another point? Oh yeah, all three of these top coats have UV stabilizers in them. Now, what a UV stabilizer is, it's not to protect what's under it. So, like if we do a lot of the colors like this on things, and we got a beautiful sapphire blue. I'm looking around. There's a red up there on that piano bench. A lot of folks will purchase, they'll do like even RIT dye, like Easter egg dye. That's not very color fast. Then they'll buy a top coat and think that the top coat's going to protect it. What UV stabilizers are in top coats is to protect the top coat. It will offer a little bit of protection for what's underneath the top coat, but it's not going to protect your color. So when you do a color, it's really important to research and get a product that's, whether it's a stain or a dye or whatever, and make sure that it's really color fast, that the color won't fade out really badly when exposed to sunlight. The top coats, like with Extreme Protection, Bright Tone, and Crab Coat has the most UV protectant stabilizer in it. It's pretty much allowable on the market. It's super loaded down, and that's one of the reasons it's a little more expensive, but it will last for years and years and years outside. Bright Tone is our second most UV stabilizer in a product. And Clancy Mullins of Johnson City, he's a famous banjo builder. And he ships, last time I was talking to him, he just shipped a banjo to Japan. And they started around $8,000. He's used our products for 40 years, long time. And I forgot where I was going with that. Anyway, he has what I call a John Deere banjo there. And it was his first one with Bright Tone. And we've got pictures of it on the website and Facebook page and so on. It's right at 40 years old, and it looks just like it did the day he made it. Rockbridge Guitars. They make guitars for Keith Urban, Richie Zambora, Dave Matthews. If any of you have ever seen Dave Matthews and those big black guitars that he plays, that's Bright Tone instrument finish on those guitars. So we've tried to take the work out of these, but the UV stabilizers to give it that longevity, it won't break down as quickly in the sun. Everything will break down in the sun. We try to prevent it from breaking down quicker with the UV stabilizers. The more UV stabilizers, the more sun you can do. But all these products do really well in the sun.
You can also refresh your exterior coat every few years with a new layer right on top of it. That extends the life of it.
Yeah. 4 coats, 4 years, full exposure with the Crab Coat. After 3-4 years, you go out and you're looking at the sign or the mailbox or whatever it is you got it on. Now, we don't recommend it for a deck finish. Handrails are fine. We'll explain that a little bit. But after 3-4 years, you see it just not quite looking right. Water hose, clean it off, get all the dirt off of it. Put you a fresh coat or two. That revitalizes the UV stabilizer in it, and it's going to let it last longer on your exterior top coats. Just no dirt. You don't need to sand. Now, if you've got a nick or a place maybe started to peel on the corner where you missed a spot or something like that, you want to, just scuff sand that. You don't have to take it all the way down or anything like that. As long as it's still adhering to what you applied it to, as long as it's still sticking well, wash it off, get the dirt, grime off of it, put you another coat right on it. Sure. Just don't leave any soap, because you're putting water on it and then you're going to have some bubbles, and you just want to avoid that. How long have I gone so far? 30 minutes. Wow, we're ahead of schedule. So doing pretty good. I feel like I'm missing something. What am I missing? I'm sorry? Yeah. Again, we have colored polys, yellow, green, red, white, black. Is that it? Blue. That we colored because those were the most popular colors in polyurethane that people would typically use. You can mix those together, make purple, greens, or what, you know, any of them. You can, Roy G. Biv. Yeah, all of us are old enough to remember Roy G. They don't teach it anymore. All of us know what Roy G. Biv is. But you can blend those colors together and make any color you want out of those. Plus, we use pigments for our colorants. And the reason being is cavemen used pigments 10,000 years ago, and they're still seeing those pictures. Pigments are much more color fast. They last a lot longer than dyes do. And dyes are sometimes easier to use. They blend a little better and go in a little better. But pigments are going to give you that color. So that's the colors we choose. But we have a set of pigments and a recipe card. Harold, you got a recipe card handy? That's what I was saying. Excuse me. That's fine. I just want you. Okay. So Dorinda, in her brilliance, she just amazes me. You can make all these colors from our pigments. So you can use our clear gel stain base or a top coat. And like if we want it, I can't see. I'm blind and can't see. Wah, 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 wah. Okay. Like sapphire. In a pint or half pint. In a pint, 1 tablespoon or teaspoon of number 5 pigment, and you'll get a sapphire blue. If you want Sedona Sunset, which is actually a really popular color, you use a 1/4 teaspoon of number 2 pigment and 2 teaspoons of number 6 pigment in a pint. Now, say you don't need a whole pint, you just need a couple of ounces, then you just break that down and you've got a color. Yeah. So any of our products, like if, wouldn't do it a whole lot, but you could, you wanted just a little bit of amber in your top coat, put a little bit of, we've got some amber tone dye, or you can just drop a little bit of your amber tone sanding sealer in there and stir it up good. If you were about out of extreme protection polyurethane, you don't want to waste it, but you don't have enough for the project, and you happen to have some bright tone, pour it off in there, stir it up, and you can use it. Any of the products that we make, except for the surface surface conditioner, can go into any other product that we make. So if you've got one of our paints and you don't quite like the tint of it or the color of it, you can mix a couple of the paints together. You can add some top coat to it, or you can add the pigments to it. You can change it and be creative, whatever you want to do with it. So know that as you're going into this, any of these products will mix and blend together. Did I get all the questions? Butcher block. Are you going to be hacking halves of beef? Are you cutting up turkeys and halves of beef and big meat choppers and things like that? Yeah, okay. I would personally go with bright tone top coat. Now, a lot of people use our bright tone and extreme protection. Number one, because it builds really fast. It's super scratch resistant, super durable, you know, utensils being set on it, appliances being set on it. This countertop up here has bright tone on it. It's got a few scratches in it now, but it's been 3 years of boxes slid across it and everything else. The thing that I love about using our products over like a tung oil or something like that is, number one, it's permanent. Number two, you never have to worry about it getting rancid. And number three, when you do it, it's done. Well, I said that number one, but let me reemphasize number one. Once you do it, it's done. One of the best benefits of it, though, is if it ever does get damaged, piece of 400, 600 grit, light sand, brush you a fresh coat right, just sand the damage smooth, brush you a new coat right over top of it, it's fine. It depends, how long has the mineral oil been on it? Yeah, it's going to have to totally off gas and totally cure and dry. And depending on the brand, it can take anywhere from 6 months to 6 years. So once you use an oil, and yeah, I'm sorry. There's everybody online, don't do this. There's a trick that my grandfather taught me. If I can still smell it, it's there. If I can still smell it, especially with your oil base, the sniff test. Break it down. Yeah. So, and you can try a sealer over top of it once you do that, like our, it's not shellac or sanding sealer or something like that, a couple of coats of that. Yeah, before the bright tone. If there's an inconspicuous spot somewhere on it that you could play with and see how, the thing that you have to watch for is adhesion issues. We bought her a new set of snow tires. We've took her on vacation a couple of times. Always on Mother's Day, we send her nice cards and gifts, Mother Nature, but she will not change the rule about oil and water not mixing. We've tried, and she sticks to it. She's just not going to change her mind whatsoever. So anytime you get into a project where you're going over an oil or putting an oil on a water base, you're going to have to, that's when you get you a sample piece of wood or something similar to it, and you try it and see if you can do it that way. Most of the time you're going to be able to do it, but it's going to have to be completely off-gassed. All the solvents, all the oils, and all the petroleum is going to have to evaporate out of it, and it's going to have to be completely dry. And that's can be a while sometimes. Don't mean to disappoint you, but about 4 or 5 coats of Bright Tone and it'll look like you poured epoxy over top of it. Now, all of our products come in different sheens. It's, people say, I've seen people say, well, I don't want to buy Bright Tone because it's so shiny. Well, we also have Bright Tone in satin and zero sheen matte that has no shine whatsoever. If you want something in between and you say you need a pint, buy a half pint of matte and a half pint of gloss and kind of mix it together a little bit and get the sheen that you want to with it. You can absolutely do that. What else did I miss? Did that answer your question? Okay, good. Concrete. Concrete is one of the trickiest things we fool with. Here's the reason. There's 1,000 different kinds of concrete. Concrete's cured 1,000 different ways. Depends on where it's at. If we've got a patio, it was partially cured with kerosene on it. And put oil on it, or something to kind of help cure that out. I would have a hard time getting a water base to stick to that. Sometimes you have to go in and etch it. A lot of people say, well, can I put it on my garage floor? If it's a slick concrete floor and it's been finished out with, super slick and it's got the oil, it's put on there to help surface tension in concrete. If my son was here, he could tell you all about concrete. It may work, it may not. Try the products over in the inconspicuous spot. See when you brush them on, if they lay on and they don't start to pull together or push out to the side, then you may be okay. Let that spot dry a week or two. Go over and see if it'll scratch up really easy or anything like that. If it doesn't do that, then you should be fine. Yeah. We've got folks, and again, it depends. Concrete needs to off-gas again. It needs to be completely dry, completely cured, completely off-gassed. Many of you, if you've been around concrete much, you can smell concrete as it's in the wet state. You can smell it. It's off-gassing. The water's coming out of it and the solvents and all the blend that it takes to make it stick together, has to off-gas. And once it's done that, inside you should be okay. Just again, test it in a specific spot. Yeah, you want to test it and make sure that it goes, because there's so many. There's pretty much one type of pine. It's a wood, and and glass is pretty much one. Steel, as long as it doesn't have oil or something on it. you're not going to have any problems with a water-based product sticking to them. When you get into blends of things like concrete and things like that, we can't tell you for sure what's in it. We'd love to say, oh, heck yeah, buy a gallon and do it. But we'd rather, as a manufacturer, not have the liability on us of you coming back and your $10,000 concrete countertops. And we said, oh yeah, do it, it'll work great. And it don't. Test it, check it in an inconspicuous spot somewhere and make sure that it works for you, on something like that. Same way with decks. I mentioned decks earlier with the crab coat. Vertical surfaces. I know I'm kind of, am I doing okay? Is this okay? You sure? I'm starting to second guess myself. Vertical surfaces in wood, like your porch or your deck. You see these coatings advertised, 10-year guarantee. Well, the company goes out 2 years after you bought it because there's nothing that's going to stay on wood for 10 years. Nothing out in the environment. Here's the reason being. If I take crab coat, it's a pretty hard surface. This seals the complete top of that wood or that deck board or whatever. And if it's laying vertical, this seals the top. It won't let water in. Guess what can't come out? Moisture, water can't come out. So unless that board is completely encapsulated, no leaks, no holes, it's completely sealed off, no moisture can get into it, is the only way that's going to stay on there until it wears off. Other than that, as long as moisture can be absorbed through the bottom, and as soon as that sun pops out, the moisture wants to go to the sun, and it's going to come out. Now, we've done crab coat on Dorinda's father's deck before he built a porch on it, and 3 years. 4 or 5 coats will get you 3 years, and then you've got an awful mess. Now, the vertical surfaces, where the water doesn't go out the front, it comes up the top, or, it goes out the sides, or it's just not as hard on top coats. Vertical surfaces like shutters and walls and signs and things like that, it's a lot better. But a horizontal, there's just no way. I tell people, stain it really nice and get some Thompson's water seal. Go over it every 6 months with Thompson's water seal. That's the only way to keep it. If you paint it, top coat it, anything like that, it's just like anything else. It's eventually going to break down out in the sun. It's going to pop off.
What would you recommend to use on the cedar bedroom suit?
I knew I was forgetting one. That's what was cedar bedroom suit. I would go with amber tone sanding sealer and bedroom suit extreme protection polyurethane. I'd do 2 coats of sanding sealer, and that cedar is going to glow. It's going to just look amazing. It's going to look like you just took a chainsaw and went out in the woods and cut it. It's going to look alive. Then the extreme protection, 3 or 4 coats of that. Dresser tops, maybe 4 coats. Bed posts, things like that, 3 coats, and it's going to last. Your great-grandchildren will enjoy the piece.
Do I need to sand everything?
It does have an existing finish on it now. You want to ensure anytime you're using a water-based product that there's no waxes or silicones. So do you have Pledge in your house? Any kind of furniture polish, any cleaner, anything like, yeah. All of those have silicone in them. And what does silicone do? It repels water. So if you're going over an existing finish now, I recommend Clean Scuff Clean. Dorinda talked about denatured alcohol. It's cheap. You can get it at Walmart. Even American Hardware down here's got it. They've even got it here in Mountain City, denatured alcohol. It's flashes off really quick. It's not super toxic, so it's a really good cleaning product to use. We recommend 50-50 with water. A gallon of denatured or a quart of denatured, a quart of water, and that makes for a really good cleaner. So clean, get all the dirt and grime and everything else. We have some 220 sanding pads. They're not real super aggressive, but they're a little bit aggressive. Then scuff. Now, when I say scuff, I don't mean this is scuff. Ensuring getting in the corners, the little places where you get that gunk build up and stuff, and get it all clean, get it all broke loose. So we clean, scuff to break loose what the cleaning didn't get off. It really helps with silicones and things like that also. Then clean again. So everything you broke loose is off of there. That's a preventive measure in just your prep work. And that prep's what everybody hates. If we could create a product that needed no prep, we'd be somebody else would be teaching this class right now. There's no such thing. So prep is the most important part of finishing. So clean, scuff, clean, and then you can just go right over it with your top coat. Yep.
What's the best way to clean like rust
Wrought iron,
Rust on iron.
mineral spirits, and then brush it. Use mineral spirits or some, something you can use on metal. Then you need to get that off the metal. So you're going to be okay. Is it like wrought iron outside?
No, it's actually in your house, but it was outside.
Okay. Yeah, I would probably take a wire brush, clean it down, wipe it down with, denatured alcohol, because it'll flash rust again if you put water on it. Then I would seal that as quickly as possible. We've got a product made for the stainless steel tumblers called Coverall, and it sets just like that. It's low to no odor, water cleanup. You put that over top of that steel, a thin coat really quickly, and it'll set it, and you should be good to go after that. But Coverall is what you want to try on it. And again, you can get, we got 4-ounce bottles of Coverall, don't we? You can get a 4-ounce bottle of Coverall and just try it in a couple of spots. Get that wire brush, clean it off to denatured alcohol. As soon as that flashes off, go ahead with your Coverall over top of it. If you want to go back black with it, you can put a coat of our Extreme Protection polyurethane black on it over top of the Coverall. So you put the Coverall on essentially to seal the metal, and then you can go over it with the black poly. Yes, ma'am. All of our products are rated to 350 degrees. Most of your box store and your oil-based products are rated 125, 150. So what happens is once they get close to that heat and they heat up multiple times over, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, they start to break down. Get that gummy, tacky, just, it just cooks off, I would recommend, and I know I come across some of my sayings. I've dealt with customer service for 20 years now, so some of my sayings come off kind of smart aleck, as we say around here. And I don't mean to. It just works, and people seem to remember it. You can't install hardwood floors over quicksand. So if you've got a product on there now, whether it's a paint or a top coat or some kind of finish, and it's chipping and it's broke loose. Now, I'm the world's worst in our 1937 house, that somebody's put 25 layers of paint on and it needs repainted. I want to be lazy, and I'll take our universal white or something and I'll paint over it, and I'll try to fill in the hole or glue the loose piece down with it and stuff like that. When you're doing clear coats, it's not the best to do that. It's always best to try to get that off or out of the way and then start with a fresh coat over if it's loose at all. Did I see? You'll use, I thought you threw your hand up, sorry. Okay.
What is the percentage or degree of transparency once it takes?
You can determine that. You can go completely opaque or semi-transparent or somewhere in between with the amount. We had a gentleman do a huge bar top in his man cave, and he wanted something really cool. So he took our grain filler. I forget what species of wood it was. It was a pretty porous, it's like African something, is something really neat. But, and I don't know why he stained it. But anyway, he used our grain filler and put glow-in-the-dark pigment in it. and filled in all of the grains on this, as big as this table and wider, on that with glow-in-the-dark pigment. Then he used our blue pigments in Bright Tone. He created, over top of that, his first coat was nearly opaque. You couldn't hardly see through it. Next coat, he added a little more Bright Tone to it to bring that, to make it more transparent. And he kept going transparent, more until he got completely clear. And so when you go down during the day like this, and it just looked like a beautiful top, but you cut the lights off of a night in there, and that whole bar looked like a river. It looked like a big pool of water in blue, in that blue pigment that you could just reach your hand. It's just one of the most amazing. He put like 20 coats of Bright Tone on it, and it looked like it was that thick when it was actually just about that thick. It's really cool. You could still kind of see the color of the wood. Well, you could see more of the grains, and it still had the blue tint over top of it, but you could still see the grains, the richness of the grains and stuff under it. But then of a night, it just looked like a river flowing with the grains of the wood. And so it's so cool. So that's the thing you want to do. And I didn't know he could do that. He kind of figured it out himself. But in the days of social media and things like that, people have quit experimenting. They watch a 4-minute video on YouTube or something like that, and they think, hey, if I run out and buy Bright Tone, I can make a Rockbridge guitar. No, it don't quite work that way. You've got to have some skills, and you get those skills through practicing. And so that's what we're going to get into now. And we'll get set up. Yeah, we're good. Let's take about 2-3 minutes. Jordan, can we cut? And are you getting ready? Hold on just a second. Is everybody okay with saying hi? And I know we probably don't have anybody watching, but in 100 years, somebody may watch us. So I'd like for everybody from Mountain City, Tennessee to say hi to everybody. These are the people that support us the most. Could you say hi, everybody? Say hi. Say hi. Yeah, these are our friends and neighbors here, and we paid about half of them to be here today, so we're going to use it. So we're going to take just a little break for just a minute, let everybody use the bathroom, get you a drink of water, and let me kind of regroup my thought process, and then we're going to put some top coats on some wood. Be back in a minute. Okay, welcome back, folks. I'd like to thank the two people that are watching right now online. That's good. No, I'm kidding. There's a few more than that, but thanks. We just had to have a pee break and water break, replace and replenish. So what we're going to do next, I think I got most of the questions. I could keep you here for 4 hours talking about the different variances of products and stuff, if you want to stay that long. Who wants to stay that long? That's what I thought. So yeah, it's Saturday. But the one thing that I want to touch on before we start on the projects in itself is we talked about the difference in solids of the different products and what the solids of a product meant. I'd like to talk about the sheens and the different sheens. Gloss is a perfect 90 sheen. That's a 90% reflectivity. So that means it's a perfect 90-degree angle that it reflects light off of. Dorinda can explain that a lot better because she's a lot smarter than I am. Semi-gloss is a 60 sheen. So if you take a 90 and you drop it by 30, then you've got a 60 sheen. It's not quite as much reflectivity in it. A satin is a 30 sheen. So you're getting way down there in the bottom. A matte is a 0 reflectivity. A lot of companies sell a satin, the same two products as a matte and as a satin. They put it in the same container. People just don't know the difference. You know, I've all the time here, and especially one brand in particular we won't mention, but they use satin in a satin sheen, a 30 sheen in both their matte and satin. So it's important to kind of, I'm just mentioning that. It's not that it's important to you, you know, but how we get the sheens, how we drop it. All top coats, and this is what we're fixing to play with, all top coats start out as a gloss. You don't make a drum of or a 500-gallon tote of matte and then make a 500-gallon tote of gloss and then a 500-gallon tote of semi-gloss. You make a 500-gallon tote of gloss. You take part of that off, put it into a drum, and we add what we call a flattening agent to it. This much flattening agent brings it down to a semi-gloss. This much brings it down to a satin. This much brings that gloss down to a 0 sheen matte. So it's kind of like a filler inside of it. So if you don't like shiny and you buy satin or you buy semi-gloss or you buy matte, it's always super important to stir. We don't give it the Minwax shake. You go stand at Lowe's in the finishing aisle for 10 minutes and everybody comes in, they pick up what they want off the shelf, and they start down the aisle and they're giving it this all the way down. All the way down the aisle. I do it too, still yet. I'm at the plant the other day. I picked up a pint and I was like, quit. You know, what you're doing, it's not as important if it's going to be sitting a while, but you're introducing bubbles into that. But it's so important if you're using a lower sheen product to take a dipstick, your brush, and give it a good thorough stir, because that flattening agent will settle over time. And we'll have people send in an email to customer service or something like that, and they'll have a picture of their project or their 4 projects, and the first one's gloss and the last one's matte. And they bought satin. And they're like, why is it doing this? Why is it doing this? Did you stir it? Yeah. No, you didn't. So we'll send you out another pint, and you just be sure to stir it each and every time. Even if you're in a project, you go grab a sandwich, you've put the lid back on, you go grab a sandwich, you come back an hour later, take the lid off of it, stir it again, because that sheen will drop or will increase on top and lower on bottom, and just start doing it in a few minutes. Yeah, Harold's got it kind of. See how it settles down? Yep. Yeah. So always do that. Now everybody should have, now we're doing some sharing. What you got in front of you, and I'm going to be doing some things up here too. Oh, this is our pigment set. Roy G. Bibb. This is our pigment set I was talking about. You get this pigment set and a gallon of our clear gel stain, and you can make a ½ ounce of stain if you want it. You don't have 15 different colors of stain that you've used this much out of sitting in your shop going bad. This stuff lasts forever. Just keep it airtight. The gel stain lasts forever. Just keep it airtight and keep it from freezing. And if you need an ounce or you need a gallon, you can make whatever color you want, and you've got one product in there. So, yeah. Yep, you can make. All right. So everybody, let me move my tea. Everybody got one of these, two of these? Everybody should have two of these. And a foam brush. These are called drawdown cards. What we use these cards for is, you can see they're black and white glossy, and they have a little bit of a texture to them, if you'll look at it. Just a little bit of a texture. We use these to check our finishes when we're making the products for clarity and leveling aspects, leveling attributes. Now it's pretty warm in here. It's probably down to like 95 or something like that right now. So we may be okay. When you're applying products, you want to be around 68 degrees, 68 to 72, somewhere in there. If you're applying water-based products at 55 degrees, you're taking away those self-leveling attributes of it. It will freeze in place. If it's too hot and you're brushing along your card like this or along your project like this, if it's too hot, that may start to tack up before you get your brush off of it and you leave lines in there. So I had a customer talking about, well, the product's not working for me. It's 95 in my shop. The product's doing all it can right now. You know, maybe wait till another day or take your project in the house and finish it. If you're comfortable, your products are going to work better. Just keep that in mind. Humidity, everybody screams about humidity. Thank goodness humidity doesn't play a part with our products as much, because here in Johnson County, you can forget it. It's like, what, 900% humidity out there right now? But humidity, it's water. Water is humidity. There's water in the product. Really super high humidity may slow the dry time down a little bit. If the air is full of water, you can't get any more water into the air. So it may take just a little bit longer for your project to dry. All right. Drawdown cards, check for self-leveling and clarity. Everybody got your brush? No. Missed one? Well, I'll tell you what, here's another one. We got some more. I got some more. Anybody? Okay. Sorry. I'll need some more, Harold. Here's two more. Who else? Right here. Can you hand this back? There you go. Thank you. Let's work together, people. We'll catch up. All right. Semi-gloss, satin, matte. Yeah.
I am wanting to do kitchen cabinets.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So when you all first opened, I had bought the sanding things and the brushes, like
Mhm.
just kind of rough it up. Is there anything else I need to do? Just rough up the
Clean scuff clean.
clean stuff? Clean?
And if you go back to raw wood, I always recommend sealing it.
Would that be with
Ambertone sanding sealer, if you want to, if you're going to, are you going to paint it or are you going to, okay. I'd just go with the, it's not shellac, you don't need the Ambertone in it, and kind of seal it a little bit. That way the tannins doesn't bleed into the paint and stuff. You shouldn't have any problem if you're using our Flippin' Awesome, because it's a 3-in-1 paint, has a primer in it. So a couple of coats of the paint and you should be fine. But if you're not using our paint, you're using just regular wall paint or something like that to paint it with, you want to seal that so when you apply your top coat to it, it doesn't pull the tannins from the cabinets through the paint and make it look yellow.
okay, so the layers, so what I would do is clean, scuff, clean.
Clean, scuff, clean. It's not shellac, paint, and if you want extra protection over it, go with the extreme protection polyurethane at 2 or 3 coats in high traffic areas, and it'll last forever. Yeah. 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 Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's got a top coat built into it, but in high traffic areas like kitchens, reaching and pulling the cabinet handles and things like that, I always recommend 2 or 3 coats.
Kitchen below, let's see.
Yeah.
Down over the years, it's gone.
Get you some satin or matte extreme protection. Go over it with 2 or 3 coats and it'll last forever. Yep. All right, now, drawdown cards. Everybody freaks out when I do this. Is this gloss? Hey, I've got gloss. Oh, it's sealed. I'm used to seeing the plastic. Huh? We tape these because they get shipped through the mail. We just about have to send them armored car to get them where they're going anymore. Everybody had an opportunity to look at your extreme. Have you got Bright Tone or Extreme Protection? Okay. Everybody had an opportunity to look at it, smell it, taste it. Don't. You'll be fine if you taste it, but if you taste enough of it, you're going to have a really nice high shine to your tongue and teeth. Give us a little stir. Now, I even stir my gloss because it is a blend and there's different things in there. You remember the old days when we had cow's milk and we'd take it out of the refrigerator and shake it up? You always want to get everything blended together. You want to give it a little stir there. Nothing real serious with the gloss. Everybody got your brush? Now, a lot of people like to prime their brushes with water, just dampen them a little bit. I don't worry with it that much. To each is his own. If you want to prime it, you can. Just wring the water out of it. Dip and drip. One of the biggest mistakes I see when using foam brushes or even bristle brushes is, and it's that old habit, old bad habit. People dip into, and they get it all nice, and then they rake it off on the side. Don't do that when using a brush, because what happens is it forces air into that brush, whether it's a bristle brush or a foam brush. We don't make these products with bubbles. You don't buy bubbles when you buy these products. You add those in yourself. So if you wipe it on the side of the container and then apply it, you transfer the bubbles that you just created to your finish. Now, all of our products will pop those bubbles, but the more you add to it, the more likelihood that there will be some left. There's only so much that we can do. Imagine washing your car. You take the sponge out and you got a 5-gallon bucket of water. Stick that sponge down in there and you squeeze it back and forth. It creates bubbles, right? This will do the same thing. So what I recommend, don't do it yet. Dip, hold it in there, let it get wet. Dip and drip. Dip and drip. Coin phrase, trademark, Shepherd Family Enterprises. No, I'm kidding. Dip and drip. Give it a little drip and a little swirl like this, and just keep it on there. Just like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull that. Do you see this bending? You let the weight of the brush apply that product. You feel it start to drag or get a little hard to pull, you feel the difference, especially if you're not pushing down on it. You're not applying lotion here, you're applying a top coat. So dip and drip, give it a little turn, and then just real gently. Now I'm going to do something, and I'm going to invite you all to do it. How many of you, when you're finishing a top coat, will do this? Nobody? Well, you can with our products. So I'm going to lay that right there. You're going to see that's going to stay there the whole time. And by the time you get done doing it, I need water. I thought I had some up here. It disappeared. Yeah, I'll use hers. We're working together. I'm just going to drop that in there. So it's part of, I call it the 5 key elements. Is number 1's prep. When you're finishing wood, you want your wood to look, you don't want your finish to substitute what you want your wood to look like, in other words. So if I don't want this spot on my wood when I'm finishing it, I need to get that spot out before I finish it. The finish isn't going to fix that. Our products, you're adding a microscope or a magnifying glass over top of that. You're going to really personify it. So prep, whether you're repainting a piece of furniture or whether you're doing something like that, is so important. So you want this to look how you want it to be finished. You want it smooth, you want it clean, you know, all the things we've talked about earlier. So prep is number 1. Temperature, we've covered that a little bit. 65 sometimes. We recommend 68, just safe, up to 72. I finished the top of a guitar, applied a coat of Bright Tone. We had one of our groups were talking about how they were having trouble getting Bright Tone to work in high temperature. I took it in our camper with no AC on, 95 degrees, and applied a coat, and it looked like glass. It will work, it's your technique. So prep, temperature's important, but it's just a conglomeration of things. All these things really help you. If you can keep your temperature down, they will work in higher temperatures, they will work in lower temperatures, but for best results, 68 to 72 degrees, and that's going to give you your best result. Prep, temperature, application method, whether you're sanding, whether you're brushing with a foam brush or a bristle brush, techniques, everything. Just what I showed you there a few minutes ago. The weight of the brush will move these products. If you're doing this, you're acting as a snow plow through that, and all the products are gathering up to the side. And so by the time you get through that, now it'll try to self-level, and it won't look as bad as it did when you first did it, but it's still not going to be glass smooth like. Everybody see that? You see me put the S in it. I didn't use any pressure. There's a few bubbles left in it, but as it dries, those are going to pop out. Now what I've got to do is just leave it alone. I can't keep going back and touching it. I can't sit there with my finger and poke on it. I had a lady finish a cup a while back, and she finished it that day. That night, she started picking on the bottom of it, and the finish lifted off of it. Don't pick at it. Don't. You know, yeah, it'll do that. Now you got to redo the whole cup again. But as you can see, that's nice and level. So light pressure, dip and drip, light pressure, and leave it alone. Go watch Netflix for 2 hours. I think I told you that. Leave it alone. Go watch Netflix for 2 hours, have a cup of coffee, eat a sandwich, something like that. Don't even look at it. If you've missed a spot, get it on the next coat. It'll all fill in, so don't worry about it. Chopping, I'm bad to do this one. I don't know how many videos I see people applying top coat like this. Feels good, I guess. I don't know. I do it myself. I have to go, whoop, wait a minute. Nice, long, even strokes. Start to feel it pull in your hand just a little bit. Stop. Go back, get more product, put it on again. So let's take your cards. I want everybody to try this. I'm going to put a lid on this one before it starts to dry. And if you ever hear and you see product sitting around, be careful picking it up because probably the lid's not on it very well. But we try to keep the lids on it. So dip and drip. Hold it in there for just a second because that sponge is dry. It may take it just a second to pick up. Hold it in there for a second. Drip. Maybe give it a little turn in your hand. I love the round handles on the foam brushes because they're easy to turn. And then you go to your card and just lightly apply a wet coat to that card. And your goal is just to get the whole thing covered. No pressure. Other than me saying, do it. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, hold your cards, whatever you need to do. However you feel comfortable with it. I see one really nice coat back there already.
It doesn't cover the whole, like you said, the whole thing, if it didn't get right on the head.
You're still got time right now. So just keep going. You've got a couple of minutes before that will start to tack up. When using water-based finishes, unlike solvent-based finishes, let me talk about solvent-based first. Solvents have solvents in it that force dry the product. So the petroleum-based products will, the solvents force those to dry out. There's no water in it. They just forces it to dry itself. A lot of those dry slow, some dry fast. It depends on the solvent that they use. Water-based, this is really important. This is really important. Water-based dries from the top down. So whatever's in contact with the air will dry first. So if you're doing a card or a board or whatever, if you're doing a card like this and you put a nice even coat on there, it's going to be dry on top, but you may even touch it in just a few minutes, but underneath it's not dry yet. That's why it's important to leave it alone for a minimum of 2 hours. And the coat that you're looking at, especially with Crystal Company products and all water-based, the coat thickness, let me borrow this piece of paper, is that you're shooting for, that's 2 pieces. Yeah, 2 pieces of paper thick. You're not building a coat, you're building layers. It's like when you go to the beach and you're going to be out in the sun all day. When you get up that morning, you take a shower before you go to the beach, you put on a coat of sunscreen before you leave. Hour and a half later, you get to the beach, what do? You put on another coat of sunscreen. You lay out in the sun for 2 hours, something like that. What do? You put on some more lotion. That's what you're doing when you're finishing. You're adding layers of protection. What we call 2 wet meal, about 2 sheets of paper thick. That's the thickness that you should be applying. If you apply it thicker than that, if you do 4 or 5 sheets thick, you've doubled your recoat time and doubled your full cure time. You're adding more time to it by the thickness of your coat. Thin coats, they dry or they level out easier, the bubbles pop easier, everything works better when you do the thin coats. So you're not trying to build a big, thick, heavy coat. Everybody's looking good? Man, yeah, you pushed a little bit, didn't you? Yes, we'll have people come on, what's wrong with my finish? I can't get the bubbles out of it. I know, yeah, you pushed on that brush a little bit. Yep, and it's fine. We're learning. Nice and smooth, everything looks good. Using too much product won't cause bubbles, but if there's any bubbles in it, once it dries on top, it dries with what's in contact with the air first. If there's a bubble down here and you put a big, thick, heavy coat on it, that bubble may be able to travel to here, but it can't make it the rest of the way out. A lot of the times we'll see it looks like chicken pox. And people say there's sand on my finish. And you'll look at it and we'll have them send pictures because pictures are worth 1,000,000 words. We'll have them send us pictures and it looks like chicken pox across it. And what it is those bubbles trapped under that dry layer where they put it on too thick. Or it was too hot. And it dried before the product was able to release those bubbles out of it. We actually have an additive in our products that it'll take the little tiny micro bubbles that nobody can see, and it pulls those into larger bubbles. Then we have another additive that pushes the large bubbles out. So if you've got it too thick, the additive can't work. Everybody's looks really, really good, except yours. Yeah.
She needs to draw all her bubbles.
Yeah. Yeah. Dip and drip and light pressure. Any bend of that and you're creating bubbles in that. If you can do it with a foam brush, you can do it with any bristle brush. Foam brush is the toughest, and every one of you's just done a successful coat. Every one of you. Very good. All right. Now what we're going to do, this didn't quite work out the way that I had imagined it in my mind. But I'm not as many of you can tell, I'm not very good at giving directions or even directives, it seems. Katie Shown at Shown's Lumber donated these boards. I had to go pick them up off the ground and everything else, but she donated them. But no, and I asked our general manager, Danny. Y'all met Danny? Anybody met Danny? He's the Red Bull guy that runs around here. Great guy. I told him, cut these boards in half because they were this long and have Jeremy do sanding sealer on half of it. So he cut the boards in half and done sanding sealer on the whole board. But what I want to show everybody is, see the difference? That's your amber tone sanding sealer. Pine, maple, poplar, Matt Nunley, who I hoped could be here today to talk about spraying, but he wasn't able to make it. Rainbow poplar, anything with color in it, any kind of wood. That amber tone sanding sealer brings it to life. It looks like this was just cut. Warms the wood up. It gives all those grains and accents a nice color. So I wanted you to see what it looked like without the sanding sealer and with the sanding sealer, but we can't do both sides of the board because one will be wet. Unless you want to hold it like this, you can. But so on the tinted side, that's got the amber tone sanding sealer on it. Go ahead and take your brushes. If you've already wet them, that's fine. No, it's fine. That's fine. You want to keep those brushes wet and dry. What I do is I just dip it down in there and take my finger and dip it off. Everybody watching that? Then take me a paper towel and squeeze it out. Dorinda, you might want to just take you a paper towel and squeeze it out a little bit, get the water out of it. Yeah, it'll feel a little slicker too. On the sanding sealer side. You can do it on either side you want. It's fine. Now I'm going to use the bristle brush this time. So just go ahead and coat your board. Go ahead and coat your board. Light pressure after your dip and drip. Dip and drip, light pressure.
Is it better to go with the green?
You know, I usually go from the longest. Grain with this product really is not going to make it. It's such a high solids product. It's going to start filling those pretty quickly. I've never paid attention. A lot of people say you need to go with the grain. I've never paid any attention to it. It just get a nice thin wet coat, light pressure after your dip and drip. Dip, drip. And I like to start about a third of the way down the board and go towards one end like this. Dorinda's a better finisher than I am. You notice the bristles aren't bending on my brush whatsoever. I've got too much product there. Nice thin coat. Missed a spot. And then I come back from the other way and just pull it all down. Just like this. Go around the edges a little bit. And you're wanting to move quick. I promise you the stuff won't blow up in your hand. You're fine. All kinds of lines and bubbles on that, and in about 5 minutes, it's going to be slick as glass. Light pressure. No more bubbles over there. That looks great. Now, you don't rub it in, just wet it. Once you see it's wet, move on with it. It's easier than we make it sometimes. Get you a little more finish on your brush there, a little more finish. You're a little bit dry. Nice. Perfect. Wow, that looks good, everybody. Look at you. Man, you're a pro. Who knew California folks could finish? Nice. Now, a board this size should take you about 10 seconds to finish. A minute total, 4 or 5 coats. Don't add more. Those will pop. And if you end up like that's fine.
What if you have like
That's fine. Watch this. Sometimes you'll have, she's got a little divot in here and where the brush raked across it, it transferred a bubble into it. Just a little pop. And it helps before it starts to dry those bubbles in. If you've got a whole bunch of them, all those will come out anyway. And people will take a straw or the baby booger getters, the little things that people use. I call them baby booger getters, but the little syringe-like things. And our tumbler groups even use, they look like little mini leaf blowers. They'll do those to push the colors around when they use our inks and things like that. So it's pretty cool. But
You got it. It's all gone.
So it just helps. They will probably pop anyway, but when you've got a bunch of bubbles like that, just give it a little puff and
To take that surface, but
yeah.
you don't need to do it.
No, with water-based finishes. Now this guy just blew my mind this week. Chris Minock with Highline Guitars, world famous luthier, builds from Denver, Colorado. Super amazing woodworker, wood finisher, and guitar builder. He grabbed a blow dryer this week and blow dried his Bright Tone. As a manufacturer, he can do it, but he's like the GOAT of guitar finishes, okay? I mean, he's up there. And we admire him for all he does. He grabbed a blow dryer so he would be able to reapply quicker. We don't recommend it. If it had rained real heavy and made a mud hole in your yard last night, all soppy and wet and muddy, water and mud, today the sun popped out and sucked the water out of that really quick, you're going to get mud cracking. And we've seen it in groups, especially with the tumblers and crafts. People say, oh, I did not use a heat gun on it. And it looks like the Grand Canyon. Yes, you did. I'm sorry, but you did. So a little bit of light heat.
Well, no, that's all I do.
Yeah.
It's just like, poof.
So we do what we call a lamp method. And we'll take a 40 or 60 watt iridescent light, iridescent bulb, not a LED. There's no heat, ambient heat with it. But you can hold or set a lamp up above the project if it's cool in the room or something like that, and just let it a little bit of radiant heat around it, and it's okay. But to go at it with a heat gun or a lot of dry heat, you're taking it may not do it, but more than likely it's going to mud crack and cause problems with it. Or blister. Yeah. If your skin will blister because it's got water in it, then so will your finishes. Wow. You guys are hired. That looks amazing. Camera guy, you getting all that? Sorry, I can't remember your name. That looks amazing. Anybody got any questions about it? If you didn't rinse out your brush in the water, they are $35 a piece. So always keep, when you're finishing, whether you're crafting, woodworking, or anything else, these pint containers or a bucket of water close by. Don't ruin your brushes. Because I promise you, if Bright Tone dries on that brush, it's going to look beautiful, but you're never going to be able to use it for finishing again, okay? You may be able to get it out with those dirty solvents and stuff we don't use. How many of you have lacquer thinner, mineral spirits, stuff like that in your workshop now? Anybody? Put those in a box and give them to somebody you don't like, because you don't need them with these products. And be patient with yourself. Where are we at on time? Oh, we're doing great. I say that kiddingly. You know, there's a lot of products you could use those for, but the intermix of those just don't work. Water-based and don't. But as you go in, whether you're wood finishing like this, whether you're painting, staining, whatever you're doing, give yourself some grace. It's not as easy as it looks on YouTube. It takes a little bit of skill. It takes product knowledge and practice. If you want something to look really good with your finishing products, practice with it. Don't believe because you see my beautiful wife in a Facebook group doing one of these cups. Where's one at? Yeah, let me have that. You see my wife doing one of these and making it look so easy. This is our grand finale. On top of that, and we've got a glitter glue to adhere the glitter and cover all that. These cups come from the factory with a water-resistant coating on them because they're stainless steel. If they didn't have a coating on them, they'd rust. So before, when people would use water-based products to decorate these cups, it would just wash off because the water-resistant coating in there wouldn't let it adhere. My wife, She designed a product that goes, a water-based, non-toxic product that will adhere to those factory coatings. But anyway, to get that finish, she didn't get that finish the first time she done a cup. Maybe about the third time she done a cup. Is this the one Linnea did? Okay, well, the first time Linnea did a cup, there's like 5,000 of these sitting around the house. I don't know who did them. But with Linnea's first cup, I kind of laughed at it. No, I'm kidding. It was bad. No, it wasn't. Her and her mom are very creative. But to do this, it took her some practice and watching materials and videos but more than anything else, it just took practice. What else we got? I covered the different products that we recommend for wood finishing. Now, we've got others too, but this is a great place to start. We covered what water-based products are in comparison to solvent-based products. We covered how to apply light pressure after your dip and drip. Look at these boards, man, they're all looking fantastic. On coat 1, you're going to say, that David Shepard is the biggest liar I've ever met in my life. Remember me telling you that? That David Shepard's the biggest. Coat 2, you'll go, well, he ain't that bad a guy. He's all right. Coat 3, you're going to put me on your Christmas card list. Put the work in, put the number of coats on that's recommended, and you'll have, honestly, and I'm not doing this as a sales pitch, how many have ever been to the Butler Museum in Butler? That was built in 1999. That's got our floor finish and wood finish in it. And it's not been touched, and it looks amazing today. So many homes and even barns here in this area have our products on it from 25, 30 years ago. And they will last. They're built to last. We don't like doing customer service, so we make good products. I hate customer service. Linnea used to have like hair out to here, and her pay. Now she does customer service, and it's not fun anymore. Yeah.
I have another question. It's a recap.
No, that's fine.
Very
I was right there with you.
So I had a bench out of like one of these right here.
Mhm.
Things made.
Live edge. Mhm.
Right, at the clinic, and it looks terrible now. So if I wanted to use,
Is it outside, inside?
it's outside.
Okay.
So would I use the crab coat? Like I could use what's the one that you said, the amber?
No, these are interior products.
Those are,
So these won't flex and move.
okay.
Crab coat will give it, okay, what the question was, we had a complaint that folks weren't hearing your questions. Next class, we'll have a microphone passed around. But she has a live edge bench outside of her business, outside her clinic. And it's just starting to look really rough, and she's wanting to know how to make it look better. First, you want it to look good. So if it's got any loose finish on it, it's peeling up, or it just looks bad. If it's never had any finish on it,
Poly.
yeah, it's probably an interior poly and it's done. So a good sanding, 400 grit, maybe 220, start out with 220 and do a 400 grit and get it all cleaned up and looking nice. Wipe it down since it already has a finish on it. And I meant to touch on these, and I'm sorry I forgot. We have a surface conditioner. This is a cleaner that you can use in between coats of product, or if you've got a project or a piece of furniture that's already got a finish on it and you just need to clean it up. You've sanded and you cleaned it up and everything, you need to clean it up a little bit more. This works really good, and it doesn't leave a residue like a lot of your household cleaners will that cause repelling and have issues with repelling and stuff. But the surface conditioner is good for in between coats. Also, we have a viscosity reducer that if you are having to work in, and a retarder, if you're having to work in, you have to work in 95 degrees, you want to slow it down a little bit, give it more time to level out and stuff like that, you can do this. But with that, I would just sand it really good and put me 4 coats of crab coat on it. If it's got a finish on it or something like that, take a pressure washer to it, allow it to dry really well before it.
Pretty much just the natural colors.
Okay.
So I would kind of like to add some tone to it. So what would I use?
You can do the amber. We have some amber tone dye. Do we still have amber tone dye? Oh, well, we used to have some amber tone dye. We'll fix you up. Come by.
So you can put a little bit of that
You can put the pigments, colorants, what in the crab coat. You can actually tone in or tone out your clear coats, any of them. But you will want to use the crab coat. Interior projects, you don't want to. We had a furniture refinisher in Florida that did outside furniture. He sanded them all down, put 2-3 coats of sanding sealer on, which is an interior product. It don't move. It's solid. And crab coat over top of it. Did great for about 1.5 years, but when that wood would swell and go back, the sanding sealer popped. So the crab coat looked great on top, but it looked like varicose veins underneath it because he used an interior product outside. So we don't have anything like that. But the crab coat itself will add a little bit of tint to it. It's got a little bit of amber tone to it. It'll richen up quite a bit. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, after 2 hours, if you've left some bubbles in it, some stayed, grab your 400 grit or 600 grit sandpaper, just give it a nice little level sand. Make sure to get your sanding dust off. I'll tell you one more war story. Had a luthier in Canada send us a nastygram via email about how terrible our products were and how awful they were, and he hated us. And I said, I'm sorry, can you send me pictures and tell me what's wrong? And so then he did that, and he couldn't figure out why under his guitar finish there was this big white spot. And what he had did is he had used our grain filler, and then once the grain filler dried, he sanded the grain filler, and then he picked something up that had the sand. He cleaned it all off, everything off, got all the dust off of it, had it ready to top coat. Then after he top coated it, all of a sudden this big white spot showed up in the middle of the back of this guitar. And he's like, well, I don't understand this turning white and all this. He sends it to me. And this comes from my years in law enforcement, I guess, but it was a perfect palm print. He had touched something that had the sanding dust on it when he picked his guitar up, and I could see the full palm print, right, the meaty part of his hand in the guitar. I said, could you send me a picture of your hand? And he goes, why do you need a picture of my hand? I said, I just want to make sure it's yours or somebody else's that's on the back of your guitar. Never heard from him again. But I think he still buys our product, but he's not going to talk to us anymore. But it's a lot of fun. It really is. I know I've missed a lot. Does everybody feel like they got something out of this today? It's pretty basic. Your 5 basic principles: prep, temperature, application, recoat time. I never covered about that. There's a difference between recoat time and dry time. Recoat time is the time that you have to wait before you put another coat on. Dry time can be 15 minutes. It feels dry, but you better wait that 2 hours. We did talk about that some. And then the full cure time is part 5. Cure time is, it's kind of used wrong in social media, but cure time is the amount of time that it takes for a product to fully off gas and completely harden. Now, you may be able to use your project, whether it's a cup or a table or something like that, prior to that full harden time, but it's really important to be gentle with it. If you're doing cups or crafts, don't soak them in the sink, things like that before they're done. Wood finishes, don't set your hot tea or your Dr. Pepper on it until it's had time to fully harden up. Depending on the number of coats, for extreme protection, if you did 4 coats, we recommend as a manufacturer a full 30 days for it to reach that maximum hardness. Now, it's 4 coats, it's probably going to be like a week and a half, 2 weeks. As a manufacturer, we have to say give it the full 30 days before you start tap dancing on it, before you throw a big kegger or anything like that. Give it a full 30 days before you start abusing it. Once these are fully hardened, whether it's bright tone or extreme protection or crab coat, you can set your cold Dr. Pepper on it and never worry about a ring. You can set a hot coffee on it. Never worry about the circles. I see somebody the other day putting mayonnaise on their finish because somebody had said, and somebody told them to put mayonnaise on it, and you're adding to the problem there. But Dorinda developed these products to where I've got an end table or a nightstand table that she finished 5 years ago for me, and it's had scotch spilled on it, Kool-Aid spilled on it. I mean, it's had everything spilled on it, and it looks great today. And she put 4 or 5 coats on it.
So from my angle here, I can see these finishes, and it seems like it goes from like a very thick finish like this and some very lighter ones. So I felt like when I was hardly brushing, it went on pretty thickly, but what is the correct, do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Okay.
you go-
So the question is yeah, I got you. The question is, and I know what happened here. The question is why does some of the boards look different than the others with practically the same amount of product and process being applying it, correct? And they look different as they're drying. She didn't go over the sanding sealer side. She went over the raw wood side, so hers is sucked into the wood more than it would have if it was on the sanding sealer side. And as a great example, I didn't want to stop you. You were having fun. Yeah, you were having fun. Yeah, well, maybe it didn't. I missed one. Danny's fired.
We voted on
Yeah.
that one with the darkest.
Yeah, yeah. So it didn't have any sanding sealer on it, so it's sucked in, so it's dry. Now she's going to have more grain raised too, because the sanding sealer didn't bind the pores and grains together. So to do another coat, she'll let this dry for 2 hours, give it a little scuff sand and put another coat on. She'll have to use 2 more coats than you will because you use the sanding sealer side. Does that make sense?
Even the one next to it looks like it's not on very thick. I just wondered about.
Well, now keep this in mind. It's on there. Look where they're sitting close to. The ambient heat from this window is drying these much quicker, and you're sitting under the air conditioning. You feel it blowing on you? So yours is going to take a little longer to dry. So as it dries, it will go down. It's not going to completely stay because you're at about 50% solids. What you put on there, about 50% of it stays. The rest of it evaporates off. Your typical, I'll use Minwax polyacrylic. They can sue me if they want to. They're between 7 to 13% solids. This is 50% solids. So you can see where the difference would be there. So good point. And they may have used less product than you did. You may have soaked your brush a little bit longer, got a little bit thicker coat on it, got the air conditioning. I can feel the heat right here from the window.
Not want to soak it is the question. Like, what, you don't want it on.
The key is don't make it hard on yourself. You're perfect, she's perfect.
You probably had less dips than I did because I didn't have enough each time and I had to keep redoing.
Yeah, I fussed at her.
Yours might have been a
Yeah, you might, and you did. I remember watching you held it in there for a good long soak, and then just did a real quick dip and turn, and put it on.
I did not.
No, she didn't. She's like bloop, 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 and that's fine. Now, not that yours is wrong or that yours is wrong. You both were successful. So
Hers was less work, so I'm gonna do hers.
yeah, it was. Just hold it in there, let it soak up, dip, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, it doesn't matter. Dip, let it fill up, drip, and then just nice, smooth, even coat.
And don't put your finger
Yeah. Well, your grandchildren will say, that's Mama's fingerprint there.
Then the wood grain fill.
Yeah, that's it. Yep, 3 to 5. 3 to 5 coats top coat. High traffic, more coats. And this is something we always miss. I recommend color. If you're doing a stain or a dye or a pigment, color first. Then seal, sanding sealer. It's not shellac. You don't have to go in this process, but this is to get that premium finish. So color first, so you got an even coat of color. You can seal first and then do your color. It depends on the type of stain. You're doing a gel stain, then it might, you know, you just have to experiment to see which one's going to work with you the best. But we recommend seal, fill, top coat. Seal, fill, top coat. Seal, fill, top coat. And if you're doing color, color should go on your raw wood. So you get a nice even color. If you're doing a maple or a pine, it's kind of hard, so you may want to use a coat of sanding sealer first to help stabilize that wood. Pine, maple, as we were talking about his maple cabinets. Maple, a board this big, you can have 10 different grain densities in that board. You can go super rock hard right here to sinking your finger in it here to semi-hard here. And so a coat of It's Not Shellac on that to help stabilize it when you apply your color will help your color be nice and even. It just depends on the type of wood that you're applying it to. So that's where the practice comes in. Don't think that you've got the stain. You bought it. I bought some Gunstock stain years ago. It's called, the color was Gunstock. I loved the color of it. And I saw that pretty picture of it and they had samples of it and I was like, man, that's exactly the color I want. If I go put that on a piece of yellow pine, it's going to look different than it will on a piece of poplar. It's just because that's the color in the can don't mean that's what the wood's going to tint up to be. So you want to, you know, get, if a soft wood, seal it up a little bit, but always, 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 always practice. And make sure you're getting the look that you want before you go whole hog and do the whole cabinet or the whole table or anything like that. And you're like, well, that's not what I wanted at all. Try it first and see. I was going to talk some about spraying. Does anybody in here spray? Use a sprayer? No, like a spray gun to apply top coats or paints or anything like that? Okay. Same thing as brushing. I'll just give it a brief. We have an $800 Apollo system. We've got another system that's nearly $1,000. And we've got our favorite, an $18 gravity fed sprayer. Is this the same one? Yeah, from China, $18. You can get them on Wish, I think $16 or something like that. $30 at Harbor Freight. They're throwaway spray guns. The key is the same keys when spraying as when brushing. Thin, even coat. Watch your overspray. We recommend 40 to 60 pounds of pressure with a 1.5 to 2 tip, 1.5 millimeter to a 2 tip. It doesn't matter what kind of spray gun you're buying. We have folks that are just getting into woodworking and wood finishing, and they'll go out and they'll buy the Fuji Spray-O-Matic 9000 for $1,800. And they've never sprayed anything before in their life, and they think that spray gun's what's going to put the finish on the wood. Anybody who's ever sprayed knows that's not the case. We talk about putting water in your spray gun and practice spraying water on a piece of cardboard before you try anything else. Don't mix your oil-based products and your water-based products in your spray gun if you're doing that, or your solvent-based. Get a cheap one just to keep separate for your water-based products. But the key to spraying is getting that 2 wet meal, 2 sheets of paper on your project. Nice, smooth, even spray. I see so many people doing this. You know what you're creating when you come out here like this, when you're spraying? Overspray. And there's a Fuji out there that has a heated nozzle that heats the product as it comes up out of it. So with Bright Tone and Extreme Protection or any of our clear coats, by the time it gets there, it's 90% dry. So they spray it in that heated nozzle and it comes out as sand on their finish because there's no solvents in Bright Tone and in our products to melt that overspray. See what I'm saying? So low pressure, high volume is going to be your best bet. Gravity fed works great if you've got, keep the pressure down. But the key is to keep it nice and even. If I'm doing a tabletop like this, I'll literally hold this like this over top and I'll, just like this. instead of doing this. See what I'm saying? So if you spraying's great. Jeremy, our guy down, our production manager, man, he can spray anything. We've got a car hood with Bright Tone on it for 7 years now, sitting out on the ground out there. It looks great. But it's got 10 coats of Bright Tone on it, and it looks better than any hood in this parking lot. It's crazy. But with spraying, practice, and get to know your equipment before you try to finish anything. Get you some extreme protection, practice with it, and it won't take you long when you start paying for the finish to learn how to do it. So just give it a nice, even spray, come all the way to the edge, not too much distance between, not too close. Just find that spot that works with your equipment and your skill level. We can do a lot of things with Bright Tone and extreme protection, but we can't put skills in it. We can put UV in it, we can put additives in it, but we can't add skill. So just practice and you're going to be more successful. Anybody have any questions? Any questions from online? Oh, nice. Anybody else have any questions? Yes.
You mentioned the pressure range coming out of the gun, coming to the gun was 60 pounds?
40 to 60 pounds of pressure.
So where would I get a regulator to make sure my compressor isn't over?
You can yes. I mean, you need an air dryer to make sure you've got no water in your lines. Filters, you need all that when you're finishing clear top coats. Just Harbor Freight has pretty much everything that you need. Woodcrafts, you can order stuff, but an oil to get an oil filter to get the oils out of it, a water filter to get the waters out of it, and a pressure regulator to keep your pressure where you want it. But again, Jeremy never uses a pressure regulator.
Really?
No, and he just keeps the stuff clean. It's just but he's been spraying for 30 years too, so it's just a matter of practicing. It is best to start out and have that stuff to make sure your lines are clean, your gun's clean, everything else. And one more point, as soon as you're done spraying, put some water in that and spray it out, because if you don't, you've got a real nice glossy finish on the inside of your spray gun, and it don't like coming out. Once this stuff dries, we actually had one lady call and complain to us one time because she couldn't get her universal white primer off. It's not supposed to come off. And she had put it on a cup and she was wanting to take it off of the cup, and it had just been a couple of days and she couldn't get it off. And she was mad at us. Sorry, I'm not giving you any more or no rebate on the product working. So just again, practice, have fun with it, and don't be so nervous when you're using it. Don't be so worried about messing up, because you got a fix all right here. If you get a run or a drip or you get a fly in it, when I first started helping Dorinda, we had a ladybug land on a board. I just coated over. She's still in there. I just coated over. Oh, she's already gone by the time I noticed. I mean, I immortalized her. So, but yeah, this is correct off. So don't worry about it if you get something.
And if you miss a spot, it's fine, leave it there.
Yep. Absolutely you can. Absolutely.
So I'm curious, is if I was to do all my prep, take all the hinges and everything, prep all my stuff, put it on plastic, I can just put it in the sprayer.
Oh yeah. You may, depending on your equipment, need to reduce it down a little bit for your equipment to be able to handle it. So you can, but water will bring your solids down. This keeps your solids where they're supposed to be, so it doesn't bring the solids down. So yeah. And this will take just, you might like use 4 or 5 ounces of water to do what a few drops of this will do. And it'll keep the solids up in the product. So typically you'd only do 3 to 5%. Yeah. of this, where water you might use 2 or 3 or 4 ounces, and that'll bring your solids down. So then you're having to use more product. So that's what that's designed for. Oh, sorry. Awesome questions, yeah. It would to an extent. The question was a wood trivet, you called it, or a pot holder, as we say here, in the, that you could set a warm pot on or a hot pot on. Warm, you're going to be fine. But again, this is a DIY finish. It's not a veneer. It's not a heat-resistant veneer or anything like that. We'll have folks ask us a lot of the time, what if I spill fingernail polish on Crystal-Lac? Same thing happens if you spill fingernail polish on epoxy or anything else. It's going to damage it. A high enough heat or a long enough heat on it could damage it. So it's best to use, a pot holder or in place of it. But if it does get warm, it's going to be fine. Well, a non-top coated piece of wood will accept whatever you put on it. Now, our stain has a little bit of a binder in it, but not enough to protect, like if something gets spilled on that wood's going to soak that up if it's just got stain on it. And the color's probably not going to last as long. It'll scratch easier. If you scratch the color, it may be hard to blend that back together again and get the color. So it's always better to put a top coat on it. If you don't want it to look like it's got a top coat on it, just to stain, use the matte, the Zero Sheen matte to go over it, and it won't look like it's got a top coat on it, but you've got lots of protection on it. Okay. I know I've kept you here for 2 hours. Does everybody feel like they learned anything? Awesome, awesome. We're going to be doing more classes. I'd love to get more classes set up. Somebody had asked me about a lathe class, a wood turning class. I'm not going to do it, but we've got folks that would. So we might put that out. We've got a furniture flipping class coming up. That's a lot of fun. This refrigerator was pulled out of a junkyard, and that's our Flippin' Awesome paint and our black gloss polyurethane on it. Yeah, it looks great. The piano bench back there, that's some of our customizable stain you can make. That's a color we just came up with, put some colors together.
You wanna go digging a junkyard?
Yeah, there's ways to do it. And with this economy, we better be planning ways to make money soon. I don't know. But thank you all so much. I hope I've not bored you to death. We'll be around for a little bit if there's anything you need or you have any questions offline. Where's the lids at for these? Oh,